I'm afraid my playing is no more like hers than a lamp is like sunshine.
Nonsense, Miss Woodhouse. I think you play every bit as well as she does. Well, nearly. And anyway, I like your manner of playing.
Thank you, Harriet.
I think you have great delicacy and taste. And so does Mr. Churchill.
Really? I was not aware that he had heard me play.
He and Mr. Knightley had a great dispute upon the point last night. Mr. Knightley was all for Miss Fairfax, but Mr. Churchill would have none of it. He said that in his opinion, taste was far more important than mere execution. He did really, Miss Woodhouse.
Well, thank you for telling me, Harriet. But are you not up and about early this morning? I had not thought to see you so soon after our late night.
Well, I have some shopping to do at Ford's. Besides, I was anxious to know your opinion of the party. Was it not splendid?
Well, I'm glad you thought it so, Harriet.
And how did you think the Miss Coxes looked?
As they generally do, somewhat vulgar. Why?
They told me something, but it is not of any great consequence.
Well, clearly you do not think so. What was it?
They told me that Mr. Martin dined with them last Sunday.
Oh.
But they talked a great deal about him, especially Anne Cox. Mrs. Goddard thinks that either of the Cox girls would be extremely glad to marry him.
Very possibly. They are without doubt the most vulgar girls in Highbury.
Oh, yes, I suppose they are.
Well, come now, Harriet. If you have something to buy, let us go down to Ford's together.
Yes, Miss Woodhouse. I like of all things to go shopping the morning after a party. There's always a possibility that one will meet, well, so many people.
Yes, Harriet.
I like the colour. I like it exceedingly. In fact, I think now I prefer it to the other. Well, what do you think, Miss Woodhouse? Is that not a very pretty shade of blue?
Yes, but as the colour you require is yellow...
Oh, yes. Then you think perhaps the other. Oh, may I see the other again, please, Mrs. Ford?
Certainly, miss.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Not at all.
Oh, thank you. Now I come to look at it again, it seems a little on the narrow side. What do you think, Miss Woodhouse? Would you not say that that was a trifle... Oh, oh dear. Oh, goodness.
There. What did I say? I told you, Miss Woodhouse, it's always to be found at Ford's at this hour in the morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
He insisted that we cross the road and looked in.
Well, naturally.
I'm not shopping for myself. I came with Harriet.
And we are on our way to Miss Bates. I believe Mrs. Cole and her family are to inspect the new piano.
But we have already inspected the new piano.
Oh, but they'll be most put out if you don't come. They're expecting
Oh,
you.
nonsense. I shall be very much in the way. You go forward and make my excuses. But perhaps I should be in the way here, too. Miss Woodhouse looks as though she didn't greatly want me. My stepmother always sends me off when she goes shopping. She says I fidget her to death. And Miss Woodhouse looks as though she feels the same. So what am I to do?
Well, if you have promised Miss Bates and her niece, I think it is very clear what you should do.
Oh.
Very well, then. I will leave you. I must go, because I promised we should not be late.
Tell them that I shall be along presently.
Really, Mr. Churchill, I think you are most unfeeling. Miss Fairfax will be most disappointed.
Oh, I hardly think so. Anyway, Mr. Knightley is to be there, and I'm quite sure he will provide all the praise and encouragement needed. Besides, if she should be in poor voice again this morning, what should I say? I am the wretchedest being in the world at a civil falsehood.
I believe no such thing. I think you can be quite as insincere as your neighbour when the occasion arises. Ah, there, Harriet seems at last to have made up her mind.
Very well, then, I shall go. Perhaps we may have an opportunity of renewing our partnership upon the dance floor before too long. At least I hope so.
Thank you, Mr. Churchill. Goodbye.
Thank you. Shall I send it to Mrs. Goddard's, miss?
Yes, please. Oh, no. Oh, yes, to Mrs. Goddard's, if you please. Oh, no, wait a minute. My bonnet is at Hartfield. Oh, better send it there.
Very good, miss.
But I suppose Mrs. Goddard will want to see it before I sew it on, will she not?
Whatever you say, miss.
Oh, better send it to Mrs. Goddard's, perhaps. Well, I can always take it from there to Hartfield later on, I suppose. Oh, Miss Woodhouse, what do you advise?
That you do not spend another moment upon the matter. We will take it with us, thank you, Mrs. Ford.
Yes, of course, that is much the best idea. Thank you, Mrs. Ford.
A dance? Here?
Why not, my love? It was Frank's suggestion. I must say I think it a capital one.
But we have not the space.
Oh, well, just the same small, happy company we had last night at Mrs. Cole's. Something of the sort. That was all my intention.
But our rooms are not near so large as Mrs. Cole's.
Nevertheless.
I'm afraid that we could not have nearly so many here.
Well, then, let's say a smaller affair, about 4 or 5 couple.
Oh, well.
5 couple would stand up here very well, I should imagine. What say you, eh, Frank?
Yes, but it will not really do to invite a mere 5 couple. Not for dancing. It is too small a number, too insignificant. 5 couple may very well stand up as an afterthought, but not by invitation.
Oh, quite so, quite so.
Then could we not restrict ourselves to some other form of entertainment?
You know, Frank, I think we've been too nice upon this question. If you want my opinion, we could get nearer 10 in here with a little rearrangement.
You know, I think you may very well be right.
Oh, dear.
10 couple would be a different matter.
Well, now, let's work out our numbers. Just jot them down, would you, my love?
Let's begin with the ladies, eh?
Oh, well, then, Miss Woodhouse, of course. And Jane Fairfax. And I suppose we should really include little Miss Smith.
Oh, yes, put down Harriet Smith.
And then there are the 2 Miss Gilberts. We cannot very well leave them out.
You have not even mentioned Mr. and Mrs. Cole.
Nor I have, my love, nor I have. And Mr. Elton, don't forget, and his new bride.
Oh, I doubt they would have returned from Bristol, my
Oh, there
love.
was 2 other young ladies. What were their names? The Miss Coxes.
But that would mean inviting Mr. and Mrs. Cox as well.
Oh, but we couldn't possibly leave them out, my love. If we invite all the others, it would be too unkind.
Very well.
And if we ask the Coles, I don't see how we can possibly do other than invite the Freemans also. Which reminds me, they have her brother and his family staying with them at the moment. I forget exactly how many young people there are.
No. No, this is quite impossible. I'm sorry, but it simply cannot be done.
Well, then, let me, if I may, put forward quite another plan.
The Crown Inn? Oh, no, no. I've never been inside it. But a room at an inn is always so damp and dangerous. Emma would be sure to catch a chill.
Oh, nonsense, Papa. I think it's an excellent suggestion.
Good. I'm exceedingly glad to hear you say so, Miss Woodhouse.
But does Miss Taylor, your stepmother, agree to this proposal?
Oh, yes, indeed, sir. She is very greatly in favour of it. And as I was going to observe, sir, there would be far less likelihood of catching cold at the Crown than there would be at Randall's.
Oh, how so?
Well, simply because it is larger, sir. So we shall have no occasion to open a window. Not once the whole evening.
Open a window? But surely, Mr. Churchill, nobody at Randall's would be so imprudent. Dancing with open windows? I'm sure that neither your father nor poor Miss Taylor that was would ever suffer such a thing.
Ah, but a thoughtless young person might well step behind a curtain and throw up a sash without anyone being the wiser. I've often known it done.
Have you? Have you indeed? Goodness gracious me. Oh, well, I live so out of the world that I'm often astonished at what I hear. Well, that makes a difference, certainly.
Besides, Papa, if it can be contrived to be held at the Crown, it would be so very convenient for the horses, for they will be so very near their own stable.
But so they will, my dear. Yes, that is indeed a point, too. And it will be less far for James to drive. Not that he ever complains. No, the only question is whether the room would be properly aired. I mean, is that woman at the Crown really to be trusted?
I can answer your fears on that head, sir. My stepmother is to take full charge of the arrangements herself.
There, Papa.
Oh, very well. Very well. If it must be, it must be, I suppose.
Thank you, sir, for your great help. Well, this discharges my first duty. Now it only remains for me to canvass the suggestion with Miss Bates. But she is hardly likely to raise objections, I'm sure.
No, but her agreement will take just as long, I fear.
Very true.
If you are calling upon Miss Bates, perhaps you would be good enough to take her another basket of apples. It would save Emma a journey.
Indeed I will. I should be delighted.
Indeed you will not, sir. You will run no errands for me.
I see you do not trust me, madam.
Very well. I will come with you, and you may help me carry them. That is, if you do not object to my company.
I should consider it an unexpected honour.
For one moment while I get my bonnet.
Emma, where are you going?
To Miss Bates, Papa, with the apples. I shall not be gone long.
But I thought...
Excuse me, sir.
Miss Woodhouse, there. I cannot thank you enough. I really cannot thank you enough. Such beautiful apples. Dear Jane, at present makes such a shocking breakfast always. You'd be quite frightened if you saw it. I dare not let my mother see how little she eats. So I say this and I say that, and it passes off. And then, about the middle of the morning, she begins to feel hungry. And there's nothing she likes so well as a baked apple. And they're very wholesome, I believe. For I stopped Dr. Perry recently in the street and asked him. Oh. Apple dumplings. Patty makes an excellent apple dumpling. She has many faults, I know, but she does make a very good apple dumpling. Miss Bates, I really think we ought to attend.
Oh, bravo. Most excellent. Mr. Mr. Dixon is a fine judge of an instrument, would you not say, Miss Woodhouse? He has chosen most wisely and well, in my opinion.
Mr. Churchill, it is not fair. Mine was but a random guess.
Oh, but we were talking the other day about his being a warm admirer of her talents, don't you remember?
Of course I remember, but I did not mean to reflect on his good intentions in giving it, all of hers in receiving.
Oh, no, of course not, Miss Woodhouse. I'm sure nobody would suspect you of such a thing. And these were sent with it, I understand. A set of Irish melodies. He must have heard you play them at Weymouth, Miss Fairfax. I said, did you not play some of these charming Irish songs when you were in Weymouth?
I did, sir.
Well, Jane, dear,
My meaning is too plain, Mr. Churchill. You are making her most uncomfortable.
If she has a guilty conscience, that is no fault of mine, is it?
Really, I am half ashamed now that I ever suggested such a thing.
I'm extremely glad that you did, Miss Woodhouse. It may account for her odd manners. Leave the shame to her, if it is true.
Mother, you would like to hear another piece? Oh, but we should all like to hear some more, would we not?
Oh, indeed we would.
Well, she plays so well, does she not? Such a delicate touch.
What about Robin Adair? That was a great favourite with the company at Weymouth, I remember. Oh, yes, let's have Robin Adair.
Jane, dear?
Mr. Churchill, I am sure Miss Fairfax has every right to decline if she wishes.
Well, now, we are all to meet very shortly at the Crown, are we not?
Thanks to the kind hospitality of Mr. and Mrs. Weston.
Oh, you're so very kind, so generous. I think the Crown an admirable suggestion, do not you, Jane, dear?
May I hope to renew the partnership that was begun so happily last night, Miss Woodhouse?
Really, Mr. Churchill, I think that is a matter best left to the occasion. You do not think it too strong a colour, Miss Woodhouse, with the yellow ribbon?
No, not at all.
Perhaps I should change the ribbons. Perhaps I should not wear yellow ribbons at all. What do you think, Miss Woodhouse?
That you should wear it exactly as it is.
Oh, I'm glad you think so. That is my opinion too.
You may wear strong colours. They set off your complexion. There are others who are not so fortunate.
There. I hear from Miss Bates that Mrs. Elton has a very fine complexion.
Indeed.
And that she's extremely elegant.
We will make up our own minds on that matter, Harriet, when Mr. and Mrs. Elton return to Highbury.
I'm sure she will be beautiful, Miss Woodhouse. Quite beautiful. One cannot wonder at Mr. Elton falling in love with her. Or she with him, for that matter.
It is not every man's fate to marry the woman who loves him best. She perhaps wanted a home and thought this the best offer she was likely to get.
And well she might. Nobody could want her better, I'm sure. I wish them happy with all my heart.
Oh, Harriet.
It's all right, Miss Woodhouse. I will not mind seeing him again now. No, indeed, you need not be afraid on my behalf. I will sit in church and admire him now without too much misery, now that I know he has not thrown himself away.
Yes?
Oh, Miss Woodhouse, excuse me, but Mr. Churchill is here.
Mr. Churchill?
In the drawing room. He asked most particularly that he might speak with you, Miss Woodhouse.
Thank you, Williams.
Miss Woodhouse, I have an extremely melancholy task to perform, so let me dispatch it as quickly as possible. I've had bad news from Yorkshire.
Your guardian, Mrs. Churchill?
Yes, my aunt is ill. How ill, I don't yet know, but she has sent for me.
Then you are leaving us.
I fear so.
That is sad news, Mr. Churchill, very sad. When must you go?
Immediately. This morning, in fact.
This morning?
Yes, my father is coming round for me here very shortly, I'm afraid. Miss Woodhouse, you must think this sudden departure both ill-mannered and extraordinary.
I have no right to question your actions, Mr. Churchill.
Believe me, the decision was not mine. No, in these matters, I'm afraid I am not my own master. My portion is merely to obey, whether or not there is justice in the command.
Of course. I understand.
Thank you, Miss Woodhouse. Thank you. Of all horrid things in the world, leave-taking is the worst.
But you will come back to us again, surely. This will not be your only visit to Randall's.
I cannot be sure, but I shall try for it. You may be certain I shall try for it most strenuously.
So, our poor ball must be quite given up.
Oh, that ball. Why did we not seize our pleasure and hold it at once? How often is happiness destroyed by foolish preparation, eh?
Yes. How often?
Well, never mind. If I can come again, we may still have it. My father depends on it. So, hold yourself still engaged, Miss Woodhouse.
Very well, I will.
Oh, such a fortnight it has been. Every day more precious than the last. Every day rendering me less fit to bear any other place. Happy those who remain at Highbury.
As you do us now such ample justice, Mr. Churchill, may I venture to ask if you did not come a little doubtfully at first?
You read too much into my manner, Miss Woodhouse.
So, You are leaving us this very morning?
Yes, my father is to come for me here, and we go immediately. In fact, I fear him coming any moment.
Without even 5 minutes to spare for poor Miss Bates and her niece. How sad. I am sure Miss Bates' powerful and lucid arguments would have persuaded you of the desirability of staying.
I need no persuading on that score, I can assure you. But I did call in there, briefly, on my way here just now.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I had intended a moment only, but was detained by Miss Bates herself being out. She is a lady I fear one must laugh at, yet one would not wish to slight.
But Miss Fairfax was at home, I trust?
Yes, she was with him. Miss Woodhouse, you have all treated me with such extreme kindness while I have been here that I feel I owe everyone, and you particularly, the utmost honesty and frankness. I'm quite sure that you, with your extreme powers of perception, must be well aware of the true state of my feelings.
Frank, my boy, the dog cart is outside.
Fine. Excuse me. I'm just coming, Father.
No, don't come near the door, please, Mr. Woodhouse. It's a nasty, raw morning.
Oh, well, I shall hear about you all. That is my chief consolation. I have engaged my stepmother to send me every possible item of news. Oh, the blessing of a female correspondent. She will bring dear Highbury close to me again. Well, goodbye, Miss Woodhouse. You know, do you not, that it is my earnest wish that we should meet again before long. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Mr. Church.
Coming, Father, coming. Goodbye, Mr. Woodhouse.
And over it she wore a pelisse of magenta velvet, which suited her style of beauty most admirably, I thought. And Mrs. Goddard has heard that she also plays the piano very well.
Now, Harriet, your allowing yourself to become so upset over Mr. Elton's marriage is the strongest possible reproach you could make to me.
Miss Woodhouse.
Yes, it is. You could not more constantly remind me of the mistake I made, which is most hurtful.
Miss Woodhouse, it was not intended to be.
I have not said think and talk less of Mr. Elton for my sake, Harriet, because it is for yours that I wish it. My being hurt is a very secondary consideration. But please, please, Harriet, do learn to exert a little more self-discipline in this matter.
Yes, Miss Woodhouse.
We are all creatures of feeling. We all suffer disappointments. It is how we learn to suffer them that forms our character. If you continue in this way, Harriet, I shall be forced to think you wanting in true friendship for me.
Oh, Miss Woodhouse, you who are the best friend I've ever had. Oh, what a horrid, horrid wretch I've been.
No, Harriet.
Oh, yes, I have.
Harriet, control yourself. That is better. Now, you are going to tie your bonnet, and you are coming with me to call upon Mr. and Mrs. Elton at the vicarage.
Oh, Miss Woodhouse.
Yes, you are. And I'm sure you will find it far less distressing than you think.
Miss Woodhouse, must I?
Yes, Harriet. But you may borrow my lace ruff, if you wish.
May I, Miss Woodhouse? Oh, thank you. Oh, Miss Woodhouse.
There, Harriet, you look very well indeed.
Oh, thank you, Miss Woodhouse.
And remember now, you are inferior to no one.
Yes, Miss Woodhouse.
You live in a large house with its own grounds as one enters the village, do you not, Miss Woodhouse?
Hartfield is on the outskirts of the village.
Mr. Elton pointed it out to me on our drive here. I was greatly struck by its likeness to Maple Grove, my brother-in-law Suckling's seat near Bristol. Do you know that part of the world, Miss Woodhouse?
No, I'm afraid I do not.
The grounds particularly put me strongly in mind of Maple Grove. The laurels are in the same profusion as in your house and stand in very much the same way just across the lawn. And I had a glimpse of a fine large tree with a bench round it, am I right?
Yes, that is so.
My brother-in-law Suckley has just such another. Only the tree I fancy is larger. It is considered rather fine. Do try a piece of shortbread, Miss Woodhouse. My cook, I'm afraid, is hardly all that one could desire, but at least she can make a tolerable shortbread.
No, thank you.
No. But perhaps Miss Smith. Oh, Miss Sue, do help yourself. My brother and sister have promised us a visit in the spring, when you must really join us in some expeditions, Miss Woodhouse. They'll have their own barouche landau, of course, which holds 4 comfortably, so with our own carriage, transport should present no difficulties. You have many such parties already, I expect, do you not?
Not many. This is not a very smart society, Mrs. Elton.
You are fond of music, so I understand, Miss Woodhouse.
And who gave you that information, Mrs. Elton?
I told my cara sposa before we were married that I could perfectly well do without the luxuries of Maple Grove, but I said, to be quite honest, I do not think I could exist without a musical society. Without music, life would be a blank to me.
Indeed.
Miss Woodhouse, I hope we shall have many sweet little concerts together. You and I should form a musical club and have regular weekly meetings at your house or ours. Yes, I think that would be a capital plan, would not it?
Mrs. Elton, I really think you have been misinformed about me. Miss Fairfax is the person you require. She is the musician.
Yes, she is absolutely charming, is not she? I quite rave about Jane Fairfax. A sweet, interesting creature, so quiet and ladylike, and with such talents. I do know enough of music to speak with certainty on that point. You'll laugh at my warmth, I know, but upon my word, I talk of nothing but Jane Fairfax. And her situation is so unfortunate, is not it? Miss Woodhouse, we must do something for her, you and I. We must bring her forward. Such a talent as hers should not be allowed to remain unknown. I dare say you've heard those charming lines of the poet. Full many a flower is born to blush unseen and waste its fragrance on the desert air. We must not allow that to be said of poor Jane Fairfax, must we, Miss Woodhouse?
I think there is very little danger of that, Mrs. Elton. Her talents are quite widely known.
But I fancy that where you and I lead, Miss Woodhouse, others will follow, do you not?
Do you think so?
One can see she feels the want of encouragement, but I like her the better for that. I confess it is quite a recommendation to me, Miss Woodhouse. I'm a great advocate for timidity in a woman.
Indeed.
But I'm afraid one doesn't often meet with it these days.
No, that is very true.
Yes, Jane Fairfax is a delightful creature, and I shall have her very often to my house, I can assure you. And I shall make it my business to see that she finds a good situation. My acquaintance is so extensive that I've no doubt of hearing of something suitable before long. With people of some consequence, I mean.
Of course.
Which reminds me, Mrs. Weston seemed a good-hearted, motherly sort of creature, I thought. She was your governess, I believe. I confess I was surprised to find her so much the gentlewoman.
Mrs. Weston is a very old and valued friend of my family, Mrs. Elton.
And on returning her call, guess who was among the company? Knightley himself.
Who?
Knightley? From Domwell Abbey? Oh, you surely know who I mean. I must confess I had a great curiosity to see him after what I'd heard from my caro sposa. I liked him, Miss Woodhouse. Yes, I did. I don't know your opinion of him, but I liked him very well indeed. His manner to me I thought particularly open and friendly and gentlemanlike. Yes, I'm not ashamed to admit that Knightley impressed me most favourably. Oh, that sounds like my lord and master returning from his rounds.
Well, if you'll excuse us, I think we will be...
Here I am, my love, in the drawing room.
I'm sorry, my dearest Augusta, but I was held up by Mr. Cole. Oh.
There. Is not this a pleasant surprise?
Yes, my love.
Insufferable woman, intolerable creature. Knightley, indeed, I could not have believed it.
Nevertheless, it is my name.
To make the remarkable discovery that you are a gentleman. Well, I doubt very much whether you will be able to return the compliment by finding her to be a lady. I doubt it very much indeed.
Emma.
Oh, vulgar creature, little upstart, with her lord and master and her callous sposo. Oh, silly affectations and underbred finery. And to propose that she and I should form a music club as though we were bosom companions.
And shall I?
No, sir, I shall not. I fancy she already finds me far less amenable than she had hoped. Jane Fairfax is to be her chosen companion, so I understand.
Jane Fairfax, I'm sorry to hear that.
I shall have her very often to my house, I can assure you. And it's a pleasure to which she is extremely welcome.
I'm afraid, Emma, I must hold you partly to blame for this.
Me? Why, pray?
If you had befriended her a little more in the first place, she would not have fallen a victim to Mrs. Elton.
Mr. Knightley, I am surprised to hear you say that. I would have thought that with your high opinions of her fine qualities, you would have thought Miss Fairfax quite capable of forming her own judgments.
I've never made any secret of my good opinion of her.
In fact, I sometimes wonder if the extent of your admiration does not one day take you by surprise.
So that is what you think, eh?
I was speaking in jest only,
Ah,
Franz.
but you are not the only one. Others have said the same thing.
I was not serious.
But it will never be, I'm afraid. In the first place, I dare say she would not have me if I asked her. And in the second, I am very sure that I shall not ask her.
You are not vain, Mr. Knightley, I will say that for you.
Ah, so you have been settling that I shall marry Jane Fairfax. Well.
No, indeed, I have not. You have scolded me far too much in the past for matchmaking for me to ever take such a liberty with you. Besides, the truth is, I have no wish for you to marry Jane Fairfax, or Jane anybody else for that matter. Because, if you did,
you could not come and sit with us in this comfortable, happy way as you have always done in the past.
No, Emma, I don't think that the extent of my admiration for her will ever take me by surprise. I've never thought of her in that way, I can assure you. She is a charming young woman, but she has a fault.
A fault? Jane Fairfax? Oh, I beg your pardon.
She has feeling. Her sensibilities are strong, I'm sure, but she's reserved. Too reserved. More so than she used to be, I think. And above all things, I love a good open temper.
Father, may I speak to you a moment?
By all means, my dear. Oh, just shut the door, would you? There's a most disagreeable draught about my legs.
It is shut.
What? Oh.
Father, I fear we are obliged to invite Mr. and Mrs. Elton to supper. They have been returned now almost a month.
Mrs. Elton, did you say? Oh, dear.
Yes, Papa, I understand your feelings.
I mean no reflection on the young lady. She seems quite a pretty, pleasant young person. There's a little quickness about the voice that hurts the ear, and I think I am rather nice on that subject. Dear Miss Taylor was always so quiet-spoken. But ask her by all means, my dear, if you wish.
But it is not just a question of my wishes, Papa.
And make my apologies to her for not having called to pay my respects, my dear.
Well, she must surely be aware of the fact, Papa, that you do not pay visits.
But, my dear, not to call upon a young bride is very remiss. A bride, you know, takes first place in company, whoever the others may be.
Well, really, Papa, if this is not encouragement to marry, I do not know what is. I thought you were no friend to the state of matrimony.
My dear, you do not understand me. This is mere common politeness and good breeding. It has nothing to do with my opinion of marriage. So you will please explain to her the reasons for my neglect, if you will.
Very well, Papa, if you wish. We shall be only a small company. Unfortunately, Mr. Weston has to go to London on business that day, and I have decided not to include Harriet on this occasion. I fancy she will fully appreciate the reason.
Had Mrs. Elton chosen to live anywhere else, I would have tried to set my scruples aside. Ah, dear, it shows what a sad invalid I am. But I do not like that corner into Vicarage Lane. The carriage tilts so.
Yes, you positively must sit and talk to
But I
me a
still
moment.
have several errands to
Well, your
perform.
aunt will not miss you for a few moments longer. Tell me, have you received an invitation from Hartfield?
I have.
Oh, I'm so glad, and I shall accept. I told Mr. E this morning I shall not answer till I know that dear Jane is to be of the party. To tell truth, I think I could not face the prospect without the company of at least one congenial member of my own sex. You and I, Jane, may exchange glances privately on occasion, I fancy, may we not? But my only concern is what to wear. What do you advise? Entertaining at Maple Grove was always so different. There everything was on such a large scale, nothing out of place. But here I feel a danger lies in the opposite direction. Most ordinary of gowns at Maple Grove would seem like an ostentation here, I fancy. And that's something I cannot abide.
Thank you, Mr. Woodhouse. My husband is so distressed that he couldn't come, but he hopes to call in later if he may, on his way back.
And you came all this way quite unattended? Dear Miss Taylor, was that wise?
But, Papa, it only takes 10 minutes from Randall's.
I'd scarcely arranged the rug round my ankles before it was time to get out again.
But James would have gone for you. He is so reliable. Why did you not think of it, Emma? You would have no cause for anxiety with James, I can assure you.
But, Papa, Mrs. Weston is not anxious, and her own man is just as dependable, I am sure.
Oh, yes, just.
Well, James shall take you back then. And, my dear, you may leave as early as you please. Excuse me.
I trust you did not venture far this morning, Miss Fairfax.
Mr. Knightley,
I saw you in the High Street, did I not?
Yes, perfect.
I was not aware. I didn't see you.
I was in the farrier's. I trust you did not get wet before you got home.
I only went as far as the post office and was back almost before the rain started, thank you.
What is this? What is this? Do I understand that you got caught in the rain?
Only for the merest moment, Mr. Woodhouse.
But young ladies are delicate plants. They must take very great care of themselves. You changed your stockings, I hope, the moment you got in.
Oh, I did, sir, and thank you for your concern on my behalf, but the whole matter was quite trivial. It really was of no importance at all.
Mr. Woodhouse?
Excuse me. Yes.
So you make yourself useful to your aunt, I take it.
It is my daily errand to fetch the letters of a morning. It saves trouble and gets me out of the house, and the walk in the morning does me good.
Miss Jane, you make me feel my years.
Why is that, Mr. Knightley?
I was about to say that there is a period in our lives when the post office holds a particular charm. Yet when you have lived a little longer, you'll find that letters are generally tedious things and seldom worth getting wet for.
You are speaking of business letters, mine are letters of friendship. Besides, you have everyone dearest to you close at hand, Mr. Knightley. I probably never shall have.
Oh, really? Why so melancholy?
So, until I have outlived all my affections, the post office will have power to draw me out even in worse weather than today's.
Jane, what's all this about going to the post office in the rain, you sad girl? How could you do such a
I
thing?
cannot imagine why everyone...
Mrs.
is
Weston, did you
such a
ever
fuss.
hear the like? Really, you're a very sad girl, I must say. I shall have to take you firmly in hand.
You are extremely kind, I'm sure, but I like my early morning walk.
But not in the rain, dear, surely. You always used to take such severe colds, I remember.
Oh, she shall not do such a thing again, Mrs. Weston. I shall see to it. No, there must be some arrange. One of our men must go.
No, really,
I shall
madam,
speak to Mr. E about it this moment. Dearest, he'll see that it's done.
Yes, my love.
My dearest, poor Jane is obliged to go herself to the post office every morning to fetch her letters, and today, if you please, she got drenched to the skin.
Oh dear, that will not do, Miss Fairfax.
Madam, that is not so. Besides, it is my own choice that I should go.
So, may not one of our fellows, George or Parry, whatever the names may be, go for her?
Well, of course, my
Yes, my dear, that's settled, so let's hear no more
Please
upon the
excuse me, but
subject.
I'm afraid I cannot consent to such an arrangement.
Nonsense. Mr. Elton, tell her the matter's closed. She'll listen to you, I'm sure.
But perhaps, my love, Miss Jane has other reasons for wishing to venture abroad in the mornings. Perhaps there is a secret admirer.
Oh, goodness gracious, I confess that's something that not even entered my head. Oh, trust my good lord and master to think of such a thing. Sir, you have a mischievous imagination.
The post office is a wonderful establishment, I always think. Do not you, Mrs. Weston?
Oh, yes, indeed. So many thousands of letters passing about the country, and so few that go astray, in spite of the variety of hands, and some very bad hands, too, that they're written in.
So seldom anybody takes the trouble to write clearly and boldly these days. Mr. Frank Churchill is one of the few I can think of who does.
I do not agree. His hand is so small, more like a woman's.
No, it is not, Mr. Knightley, not at all.
Oh, we cannot put it to the test, I'm afraid, as we have no specimen of it to examine. At least I have not.
Well, you will have to ask Mrs. Weston to show you some of his letters as she has done to me. And now, if you will all please come into the dining room.
Thank you, Miss Woodhouse.
Madam, may I have the
Oh,
honour of
Mr.
this
Woodhouse, must I go first? Really, I'm quite ashamed of always leading the way. Thank you. Yes, you be careful as well now. If you're familiar with the neighbourhood of Bristol, then thank you. You must know my brother-in-law Suckling's place at Maple Grove, I'm sure, because it's quite one of the places to be seen.
Mrs. Weston.
Oh, the grounds are not particularly extensive, not greatly larger than these, I should think, but of quite remarkable beauty.
Don't eat it, my dear.
In fact,
This is really-
I've had
Let me get
many gentlemen declare that the view of the house as one approaches it in the Barouche landau is as delightful as anything to be seen on the whole continent of Europe. If you mean a fling at the slave trade, I assure you Mr. Suckling was always rather a friend to the abolition.
I pray with all my heart that the gentleman may not take too long over the port, or I fear I shall be guilty of some sort of incivility.
Emma, do exercise a little self-control. We all have our foibles, you know.
I know, and I'm sure I have plenty myself. But there is a certain quality in her voice which I find infuriating.
My dear, shh. Oh, I had hoped Mr. Weston would be back from London by now. He has gone to seek news of Mrs. Churchill from her lawyers. I do hope she has improved. Frank is most anxious to return to Highbury.
I am sure you must all look forward to that moment.
Oh, yes, we all do.
Jane, my dear, your aunt tells me that you're worried because you've not yet been able to obtain a suitable teaching appointment.
That is not strictly true, Mrs. Elton, because my future plans are still a little uncertain.
I didn't wonder at your concern, I must say, because when my brother-in-law Suckling advertised a similar post recently, he had an absolute infinity of applications, I remember. That was rather a special case, I do admit, a much sought-after situation. Wax candles in the schoolroom, even. You can imagine how desirable. But that place is already filled, unfortunately.
Please don't trouble on my account, Mrs. Elton. When the time comes, I shall make my own inquiries, but not just yet.
Oh, my dear child, it's no trouble, I assure you. I shall write to my sister at Maple Grove first thing tomorrow morning. She'll know of all the more suitable families in the neighbourhood who are requiring help. Yes, now, why did I not think of that before? Have no fear, Jane, my love. A word from me, and I'm quite confident you'll find the situation that your talents deserve.
Excuse me, ma'am, but I'd be very much obliged if you would do no such thing.
Ah. Here comes my old beau, as I call him. Fancy his coming away before all the other gentlemen like an eager young fellow of 20. Honestly, some of his gallantries at the dinner table upon the cut of my gown and so on were such that I almost hoped my caro sposa wasn't. But one can't take exception to such pretty speeches from a man his age, I always think. Besides, there's something rather old-fashioned and gentlemanly about his manner, wouldn't you say?
Emma, I have an addition to your numbers.
Good evening, Mrs. Elton.
Good evening, Mr. Weston.
Mr. Weston, you are very welcome.
I shall be welcome enough when you've heard my news, I'm sure. Well, he's coming back. Frank is to return to us at Randall's almost immediately.
Oh, that is wonderful news. Wonderful news, is it not, Emma, dear?
Yes, indeed it is. Very good news.
I always said he'd be back soon, did I not? Well, it's to be next week at the latest.
Next week?
That is my information. Mrs. Churchill, I understand, is of the opinion that only a London doctor can effect a cure on her behalf. So she's taken a place in Richmond for the season. Well, is that not capital news?
They're coming to Richmond?
Yes, that's right, my love.
Why, then we may revive our plans for the ball, may we not? I shall
is
call
this
it round
Mr.
first
Frank
thing tomorrow
Churchill?
morning to set things going again.
And he asked most particularly that he might re-engage himself to you for the opening dance, my dear.
Did he, Mr. Weston? That was most kind of him.
So, in spite of being too late for dinner, I've not exactly wasted my day, have I, my dear? Eh? Eh?
No, Mr. Weston, you have not.